Suspended public protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane back in Parliament, fighting to keep her job and dignity intact. Yesterday, we heard how her suspension is linked to or was revenge for highlighting and wanting to investigate the Phala Phala farm scandal. Today, we heard from Sphelo Samuel from the Public Protector's Office in the Free State. He says since Mkhwebane took office, the number of community outreach programs conducted by the PP reduced significantly, while costs of litigation continue to escalate. My colleague, that's eNCA reporter Lindsay Dentlinger, is following these developments. Let's join her live now in Parliament to get the latest update. Good afternoon, Lindsay. Just to tell us more about these allegations made by Mr. Samuel today regarding the Friede dairy farm investigation by the Public Protector's Office.
So, Dan, just some context to this witness. You might remember Mr. Samuel was the head of the Free State Office of the Public Protector when he wrote to Parliament in 2020 to complain about what he believed was the misconduct of the Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Just last month, his dismissal was overturned by the CCMA, and we hear today that he reported for duty there again on the 4th of July. But that now is a separate issue that we expect to hear more from in the next day. But what Mr. Samuel essentially put before this committee was information relating to that investigation in the Friede dairy farm matter. More specifically, Dan, shoring up evidence we heard from a former investigator last week that the Public Protector allegedly gave them instructions to exclude implicating politicians, and more particularly he named former Free State Premier Ace Magashule and former MEC for Agriculture Lindsay Dentlinger as the two politicians whom they were given instruction not to make adverse findings against. Mr. Samuel telling this committee that he went against that instruction from Ms. Mkhwebane, and in a draft version of that report, he made findings against them, even though he told this inquiry that the pair of them refused to cooperate with his investigation. He said no matter how many times they tried to make contact with them to share information in this investigation, they ignored all requests from the Free State Public Protector's Office, and that Busisiwe Mkhwebane allegedly refused to sign off on getting them to be subpoenaed to give information to those who were investigating. But Mr. Samuel telling this inquiry that it was quite evident from other sources and information that they had gathered from officials, there was no way that Mr. Magashule and Mr. Zwane were not also involved in the wrongdoings that went on in relation to that project. And Mr. Samuel then ultimately telling the inquiry that when he returned from a leave period, the information that he had, the findings that he had made in that report, which related to politicians and also to cost escalations for goods and services related to that farm, had been removed from that report. Here's some of that testimony that he gave here earlier today.
Her response was that she does not want any findings made against politicians. And so she declined my request to prepare the subpoenas for her signature.
And what was your view on the matter?
I accepted her, her directive at the time, and knew that I could not take the matter any further. So I had to rely on what was available to me.
And what did you then do? The PP on your evidence said that she didn't want any findings against politicians.
I did not persist with my request, so I then prepared a draft and made findings against, or adverse findings against both politicians, to the effect that they owned up to this project, and that it is impossible that the HOD could have been acting alone in whatever he had done without either direction or direct instructions from the politicians.
Now, there was an issue, I understand, that came up about the style of management style of the public protector. What are the claims made here?
So Mr. Samuel telling this inquiry this afternoon that when Busisiwe Mkhwebane came to office in 2016 and had a meeting with senior managers from offices around the country, that they felt intimidated and threatened by her. He alleges that she went around the table and she dished information on each of them, which they didn't think that her predecessor, Thuli Madonsela, would have shared in a handover report. And in the case of Mr. Samuel, that was about an assault charge that he faced due to a scuffle that he had had with a complainant in an office in another region. And Mr. Samuel telling this committee that senior managers, once they spoke amongst each other, they got the feeling that Ms. Mkhwebane had gathered information about each of them that could be used against them in some manner if they didn't step up to the plate. And he said he felt that she was at pains to try to get rid of certain managers, and if she could not get rid of them, that she was going to make the work environment for them as untenable as possible so that they would then leave of their own accord. And then, Dan, we will know this issue that has perpetually circulated around Busisiwe Mkhwebane since she took office. Mr. Samuel then saying that these managers came to the conclusion that she must know these things about them because of her background and linked to the State Security Agency, because how else would she know this kind of information about people that she had never met and when she had just taken office? Here is what Mr. Samuel had to say on that score.
When the PP came in 2016, she had some kind of knowledge about some of the activities that we had been involved in individually. In 2017, I think it was, when she made the opening remarks in one strategic planning session, which we generally hold around October, November. She went to town attacking some of the managers, or most of them, with specific information about what they allegedly had done or that she knows. I was one of those. When she mentioned in that open forum that I had allegedly assaulted a complainant, well, she didn't put it as an allegation, she just put it as a fact that I had assaulted a complainant, and said, imagine what the media would do if they got wind of that. And then she should go to the next person and attack them directly. You know. But that is what she then she did in that forum.
Yeah, well, some interesting and serious claims, the allegations there. Lindsay, what's next in this impeachment inquiry?
So we had an unexpected early adjournment for the day. It was still set to carry on until 5 o'clock, and before the tea break, the evidence leader had done taking Mr. Samuel through his affidavit to Parliament, and we were expecting cross-examination to start now after the tea break, but we've been informed that Mr. Samuel has some health challenges and has asked for the proceedings to conclude for the day, and he will be back here tomorrow for Mr. Darling Mpofu, who is representing the public protector here, to cross-examine him on, as you put it, some serious allegations and bombshells that he has dropped here throughout the course of the day, and for Mr. Mpofu then to test that evidence that he has been given the inquiry today.
Thank you very much, Lindsay Dentlinger, for that comprehensive update from Parliament in Cape Town. Tomorrow, the impeachment inquiry regarding the public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, will continue.